Bulldog fans, excited to introduce you to our new friends at Vincero. Very excited about this, too. I mean, this is a company that does a great job pumping out the Vincero Collective. Very, very excited about this. You should be, too. If you don't know who Vincero is just yet, they're a premium lifestyle brand out of San Diego, right here in the United States of America, carrying watches, sunglasses, and much, much more. Perfect for men and women of any style, any age. Creating exceptionally crafted and ethically made products. That's important in today's time, too. Modern pieces that elevate your look and stand the test of time. And how many times do you go out and you buy something and it's like, I really like these, and the next thing you know, you buy these glasses, and the next thing you know, they're getting kind of wobbly and everything else, and you feel like that you've got some old sunglasses and they're just not lasting. That's not the case with Vincero. They're adamant about the process. Design everything in-house. They source their own materials. They produce in small batches and ship right to your home. They do with the planet in mind. Vincero has been carbon neutral since 2019, investing in renewable energy and forestry. Modern ethical branding with the goal of providing premium lifestyle accessories for the stylish me and you. How about that? Stainless steel, durable silicone, and Italian marble straps. Surgical grade stainless steel casing with Italian marble inlay. It's incredible. Go check them out yourself today. Vincero is offering a special 15% off for Boneyard listeners and free shipping to all of our listeners by using the promo code Boneyard. That's VinceroCollective.com. That's VINCERO Collective.com. It's Vincero. That's how you pronounce it, Vincero. But it's spelled VINCERO Collective.com/Boneyard. Very, very easy to find. And again, you get that 15% off and free shipping just by being a Boneyard listener. Be sure and check them out today. Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. A little bit later start than I wanted to have the day, but woke up early and dogs wanted to go out. Next thing you know, I'm watching a little Netflix and time gets away from me. And I'm like, hey, I forgot it's Wednesday. So here we are. Going to help you through the rest of the week. Got a good show today, I think. We're going to talk about some things in depth. We're going to talk about some truisms and some truth about Mississippi State baseball. Listen, let's be honest. It's been a disappointing year. Now, that's not necessarily all on the fact that, our staff and players aren't giving their best effort. I believe they are. We had some serious injuries this year, but the reality of it is that we still had our opportunities. And, the season's not over by any stretch of the imagination. We can still get hot here late, but competition, arguably the most difficult part of our schedule, save a road trip to Arkansas, is in front of us. Big news yesterday, long-awaited confirmation that Florida starter Hunter Barco, their ace pitcher, done for the year. There has been a rash of that this year. It really has been. And we've been hit particularly hard, but our problems are not unique. Unfortunately, it's part of the game. And that's the thing, too, when it comes to sports, because it's a journey. Right? It's not just about a game or a stretch of games. It's about the totality of a season. Injuries are part of the game. Injuries are part of the season. And unfortunately, we have not had enough depth to overcome those injuries. And that's something we've got to address. It is. I do expect Mississippi State to be very active in the transfer portal this year. Talked to a few people in college baseball circles, and some people, let's just say closely affiliated in the college baseball world. Yeah, it's going to be a buyer's market for Mississippi State in many respects. And that's the thing, too, as I shared on Bo Bound's show yesterday. I'm not going to sit here and say Mississippi State baseball is an equivalent to Alabama baseball, because the only thing that's come close to that is probably the USC teams, of the 70s. But the reality of it is that Mississippi State provides a very unique college baseball experience that's really unlike anything else in America. So when Chris Lemonis and Jay Gautreaux and Scott Foxall pick up the phone and call a prospect, they're going to get a return call. Not to mention, you look at how well guys like Scottie De Bruyne have done. R.J. Yeager has done. Jess Davis to a much lesser extent. I'm a Jess Davis fan. Again, I don't see him in practice every day. I don't always understand the game plan offensively. You know what I'm saying? I'm not privy to that information. So I don't know how competitive his at-bats are in relation to what's expected of him. I think he's our best option in center field based on what I've seen. But Jess Davis is a good player. Struggles at times against lefties. But the reality of it is we have had some success in the portal. we didn't really dip into the portal for pitching this year. We had before. Remember Carlyle Kessler? He was okay. Did a good job for us. Ate up some innings in the midweek, and at times was pretty good on the weekends. Other times he wasn't. Dave Dunleavy is the guy that transferred in, lasted a season, was kind of up and down. Stone Simmons, arguably the best pitcher we've gotten out of the portal, but we're going to have to go find some pitching in the portal. Probably find some guys at the middle too. Probably need another middle infielder. Because here's the thing too. When you come to Mississippi State, as the Mississippi Junior College ranks can attest, if you come here as a young guy and you don't produce, you're going to end up transferring to a junior college pretty quickly with the hope of coming back someday. But that rarely happens. We had some guys last year, Jeffrey Yentz, Jackson Kahn, some guys that, pretty highly touted recruits that came in and went through fall baseball and said, you know what, I got to go somewhere else to get on the field and get some reps. They did. So, but high school recruiting still has to kind of be the linchpin of success. You go out and hit the portal to help get some guys perhaps that, you're stopgap guys while your younger guys develop. And I've read, too, people say, well, Steve, I don't want to be a portal program. We shouldn't be at that level. Guys, there's a new reality when it comes to all that. Look at Arkansas. Arkansas has got a couple of guys, including Michael Turner, their catcher, who was outstanding, out of the portal. LSU hit the portal hard this offseason. They're not a great team. They're a really good team, though. And when we saw them, they were still kind of struggling to find a sense of themselves. But they've kind of settled in now. So the reality of it is we got to set our pride aside and get off our high horse a little bit and say, hey, as a fan base, we understand the portal can be a positive thing for us. It's not going away. And so why would we not employ that as a resource to help us facilitate getting some talent? Where would we be this year without R.J. Yeager? The guy's potentially an All-American, certainly an All-SEC guy this year. But where would we be? I had some people tell me back in the fall, some of our current players, hey, he's our best player. He's beginning to show that. Got off to a dreadful start. Remember, he started off leadoff, ended up going down as low as 7th in the order, left the lineup for a time or two. But now you look at what he's done, it's phenomenal. And that's the thing, too. If we're going to approach a transfer candidate, put them on the phone with Scottie De Bruyne and R.J. Yeager. They can tell you what your staff can do. But let me move. Before we move forward, let me make sure that there are no misconceptions here. I am 100% a Chris Lemonis guy. I'm 100% a Jake Gotro guy, 100% Kyle Cheesebro and Scott Foxhall. I 100% support this staff. And I've read some things out there, and I know we get to be prisoners of the moment. Listen, we're struggling this past weekend against Missouri. I wasn't real happy. Neither were you. We expect more, right? We're Mississippi State. It's the one thing we've always been able to kind of poke our chest out about is college baseball. And so when we struggle, I experience those same emotions you do. I just don't go get on social media and share them. But I also think it's important to look at the bigger picture. Chris Lemonis is 3 for 3 when it's come to Omaha. Every year since he's been here, he's been to Omaha. Or maybe that's 2 for 2. 2 for 2. Yeah, he went 19 and went 21. We had a good team in 22, but didn't get a chance to play out the year. But the bottom line is that Chris Lemonis has come in here and done a great job, and he's done something nobody else has ever done before. You got the highest paid staff in the country, from what I understand, and so we're committed to these guys. We're committed to baseball. We're committed to Coach Lemonis. And so I read some of these things, and people are like, well, Steve, should we expect change? No, you shouldn't expect change. Why would there be change? I mean, it's laughable. It really is. Well, Steve, what has to happen? Nothing has to happen. What has to happen is we have to get some guys healthy. We got to get some guys out of the portal and get back in contention for Omaha next year. That's what's got to change. And so there are going to be some guys that maybe you really like, leave the program. There may be some guys that you're unfamiliar with become your kids' favorites next year. Because one thing's for sure, Mississippi State's not going to be stagnant when it comes to this kind of stuff. There's just too much. There's too much involved in all this. Too much investment on all of our parts. Not just the administration, but our fan base. I mean, we are totally committed to college baseball. And so everybody understands the expectations here. I mean, we expect to be in a regional every year. When we haven't been, it's one of those things we get awfully uncomfortable about, and rightfully so, because when we've made this commitment, whether it be with attendance, whether it be financial, we expect to get some return on that investment. And Chris Lemonis knew that. I mean, when I first interviewed Chris one-on-one, we talked about that. He goes, you don't come to Mississippi State expecting to just kind of get there every once in a while. You come to Mississippi State, and every year the goal is Omaha. Every year the goal is to go win an national championship. Whether we do or we don't, the goals never change. And for those of you that think that, I kind of laugh at this. It's like, well, I just don't understand, the Lemonis thing, and he sits on the bucket and that sort of stuff. And all that is just so incredibly dumb to me. Chris Lemonis is one of the most competitive people that I've been around. And there's no doubt about that. Chris Lemonis is our guy. He's not just my guy. He's your guy, too. He's the guy that brought us a national championship. He deserves our support. Probably now more so than ever. It's easy to be a fan in times of prosperity. I mean, it really is. It really is. And I think there are some people out there, it's like we want to impress our Ole Miss friends, so we get on Facebook and we say that. Maybe it's like it is a preliminary strike, a preemptive strike to avoid them giving you some grief. I love Mississippi State more than saving face. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only guy that feels that way. But I'm true Maroon, and I know that most of you are as well. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Chris Lemonis today. We're going to talk about some recruiting stuff. We're going to talk about kind of what is to come. We'll look around the SEC, talk some football recruiting before the show is over. But I think it's important to understand, the same staff that won a national championship last year that seemed like every button they pushed was the right one, same guy's still here. Sometimes things don't work out. We all knew what we were facing. We all knew it. When Landon Sims went down, we went from thinking, okay, well, there goes our shot at a top 8 national seed. Maybe we can still host. Then we find out that Stone Simmons is done. And now we're thinking, okay, let's just make a regional. Then we found out that Brooks Auger's done and recently had successful Tommy John surgery himself. We had 3 major injuries to 3 major contributors on the pitching staff this year. But it hadn't just been pitching. Now, we're probably going to set a school record for home runs this year. Let that sink in for a second. But we have become very reliant on the home run. We don't always bunch together hits and get 3 or 4 hits in an inning and really rock somebody to death. We did against Chile a little bit on Sunday. Really barreled him up. We had a good game plan for him. We knew we'd see him at some point, and I thought Jake had the guys really prepared. They kind of flipped the script on us a little bit earlier in the ball game. But reality of it is we expect to go beat Missouri. We've had a tough time doing it the last couple of years. But anybody ready to check out on Chris Lemonis, I think you're just simply being a prisoner of the moment. Chris is our guy, 100%. Chris is a generational coach. Chris will probably be here until he retires, and he deserves that because I think we're not done winning national championships. I know this year hadn't been the year that we expected or hoped. It's not over, but certainly. If you think Chris Lemonis is going to get to the offseason and say, well, maybe next year. No. that's not going to happen. Chris Lemonis will take the steps necessary to get Mississippi State back in contention for a top 8 national seed. I have no doubt about it. Of course, you got to stay healthy. Guys have got to develop. But the reality of it is, if you think Chris Lemonis is going to sit by and just hope to get lucky next year, you're kidding yourself. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company. I was in there over the weekend. Told you guys I had the country fried steak hamburger. Very different deal. It is. Very enjoyable, though. The next time I'm going in there, though, I'm getting that Nashville hot chicken sandwich. I've had the sweet heat chicken sandwich before. I like it. They tell me this one's a little bit spicier. And here's the thing, too. I've always been the guy that is kind of envious of the experience, right? Like if you've had an experience I haven't had, I feel like somehow I've been shortchanged. I want to have that experience. And so when I go in there and look at that menu and I realize there's a couple things on the menu I hadn't had yet, I thought, well, I got to get back in there. I got to have that. I want to be able to speak intelligently on the show about the offerings at Bulldog Burger Company. So I'm going to go have that Nashville hot chicken sandwich probably before the weekend is out. Might even swing in there tonight or tomorrow. I got to have it, man. I got to have it. I can't let you guys have that experience and not me. You will enjoy your dining experience at Bulldog Burger Company. I love going in there. You guys will as well. Many of you are already big fans of Bulldog Burger Company. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Star Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and the brand new one, Lake Harbor Drive there in the Ridgeland Flowwood area. Be sure and go check them out. Have the chocolate shake to go. Ian, my youngest son, he's already thinking about that chocolate shake about halfway through the meal. Hey, Daddy, can I get? Yeah, yes, son, you can. You can. That's part of the experience here. I had the spring rolls. As I told you guys, when I checked the rearview mirror on Monday, didn't recognize myself. Absolutely imperative to have the spring rolls as your appetizer to improve the quality of your personal looks. I mean, trust the science. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. MEAT. All right, one of the things that I do, sometimes I'm looking for things to write about. There are things that I find curious. There are other times, too, people will suggest things, and I'm not exactly sure. So I just go do the research and write an article because I feel like, hey, if you're reading the same commentary, you may have the same questions. And I feel like if it's interesting to me, chances are it's interesting to you. And so I've read these things, from some of our self-loathing Mississippi State fans, and I love them too. I just don't love them as much as I love the True Maroons, but it's a different level of love. But Chris Lemonis won an NFL championship, but it was with somebody else's players. And I thought, you know what? I don't know that that's accurate. So let me go do some research here. I did some research. I called a couple people to confirm my research. And so here are the results. I wrote an article yesterday called Constructing a Championship Team on genespage.com. Free article. You can go read for yourself. But I want to run through this. We had 25 players last year make an appearance in the College World Series. I believe that the roster limit is 27 for Omaha. I think that's right. We had 25 players make an appearance. So obviously, for the number one guy, Tanner Allen, National Player of the Year, he committed to Andy Cannizaro and he signed with Andy Cannizaro. And he and Andy were a package deal, just so you know. Mississippi State and LSU were his finalists. He picked LSU over Mississippi State. A lot of people don't know that. He did. But his relationship was with LSU was basically his relationship with Andy. So when Andy got the job, and the guy that gave him the job is like, hey, you need to bring Tanner Allen with you. And he did. And we all benefited. We got a national championship and a National Player of the Year out of that deal. Tanner Allen will go down as one of the most beloved players in Mississippi State baseball history. And he was committed to LSU. We flipped him. Worked out good. Chris Lemonis did sign a couple of kind of pillars of our team, including Will Bednar. If memory serves me correct, he was committed to Penn State. I think that's correct, Penn State. He decommits, and Scott Foxhall told me when I wrote Dogpile, and if you hadn't read Dogpile, you should. Go to dogpilethebook.com. You can order that or find it in great bookstores all over Mississippi. But the very first recruit that Scott Foxhall saw in person once he took the job here was Will Bednar. And we get him. And Fox tells me a very heartwarming story about he and his dad. His dad was in really bad shape, and Will Bednar and them were on an official visit, and Scott had to leave to go be on his dad's bedside after he'd had, I believe, a pretty massive stroke. But so Lemonis commits and signs Will Bednar. Where would we be today without Will Bednar? It worked out well for Will, too. The greatest postseason pitcher in Mississippi State baseball history. How about that? A name that will live forever with adoration at Mississippi State. Ended up being a first rounder. Andy Cannizaro got the commitment from Kellum Clark, and so that deal was basically done. That's Andy kind of cleaning up for John Cohen. A lot of those early commitments, and that's a good job by John too. To be honest with you, John did a great job recruiting here at Mississippi State, but I think it also kind of it inspires a little confidence in the new coach. It's like Andy gets here, and Andy's a great recruiter, don't get me wrong, and a tremendous recruiter. But he kind of cleaned up the green a little bit for John when he first got here, and then people were like, oh, wow, look at this. Look how we're recruiting. Well, a lot of these guys we were going to get if John remained our coach, and Kellum is one of them. Kellum, a Bulldog through and through, and I still think his best baseball is to come. He'll have a decision to make with the draft coming up, but I think Kellum is a guy maybe benefit from another year. But I'm a huge Kellum Clark fan. I think he projects well on the next level. First year really playing outfield, I think his best baseball is ahead of him. But he commits to Andy and then signs with Chris. And you can say, but Steve, he committed to Andy. Yeah, well, when Lemonis gets here, he's under no obligation to honor any commitments, but he does. And I've talked to David Clark extensively kind of about that process. I mean, it's like Cohen starts recruiting him. He commits to Andy, maintains a commitment through Gary, and Andy, and then with Lemonis. And can you imagine how stressful that would be? Your kid commits early on, and the next thing you know, the guy that initially recruited you is the AD, but there are 3 head coaches that follow him. So his commitment had to survive 3 different coaches. It also says that their evaluations are probably similar, because there's no way Chris Lemonis signs Kellum Clark if he didn't believe he'd come in here and help a team. And again, where would we be today without Kellum Clark? Guy had we lose to Virginia without Kellum Clark, and we probably lose to Texas in game 2. We probably didn't even make it to the College World Series final without Kellum Clark. Brad Cumbest committed and signed by Dan Mullen. How about that? I was actually there when that happened. Brad comes to camp. We're not going to sign a tight end. Brad takes over the camp, has the entire staff watching him. I go up and interview him, and he's like, this is where I'm going to go. If Mississippi State offers me, this is where I'm going to go. It's where I've always wanted to go, and he did. And then Mike Leach and Chris Lemonis work it out to enable him to play both sports. And Brad Cumbest having the best year of his college career. Scottie De Bruyne last year, transfer, obviously, came in from Jacksonville. That's a Chris Lemonis commitment and signing. I mentioned earlier, Scottie De Bruyne, an outstanding defensive player for us. Took him a while to adjust to SEC pitching, but he did. Lane Forsythe committed to Andy Cannizaro. Chris Lemonis signed him. I'm a Lane Forsythe fan, playing the best baseball of his Mississippi State career right now. Jackson Fristow, Chris Lemonis flips him from Kentucky. That's a Paducah, Kentucky native. So he goes into the state of Kentucky and takes a kid away from Kentucky. Now, you can say Jackson Fristow may not have lived up to his potential just yet. I'm still a Jackson Fristow fan. I think he will figure it out. But again, that's a good job by Chris going in there kind of shaking things up in the SEC. Luke Hancock actually committed to John Cohen. He's like a 9th grader. He signs with Andy. Where would we be without Luke Hancock? A team-first guy in every aspect. Remember last year we had a tough time kind of figuring out the Sunday deal? First is going to be Sarantola, and then it was Fristow for a while. Fristow kind of hit the wall. And then it was Houston Harding that kind of helped us down the stretch. That's a Chris Lemonis commitment and signee. Do we win in Omaha without Houston Harding? I don't know that I don't know if we win the Super without Houston Harding. Houston Harding, probably a guy that should have come back, would have definitely helped some things for us this year. But the reality of it is we got our scholarship money and then some from Houston Harding. Josh Hatcher was a John Cohen commitment, signed with Andy Cannizaro. I don't know if you saw the news last night. Now that he's at Kennesaw State, Hatcher got his 200th career college baseball hit last night. And Hatchie, I love the guy to death. Hatchie hung in here for as long as he could and then needed to get on the field. Didn't get a chance to play much last year. Lost the job to Luke Hancock. Just wasn't where he needed to be as a hitter, but he goes to Kennesaw State and kind of finds it again. And that's great for Josh, really is. I go back to that 2018 Super Regional, when we played at Vanderbilt. And in the big inning there, we mounted the big comeback there. It was Josh Hatcher who pinch hit in the 9-hole. It worked and worked and worked and got us a walk. And next thing you know, we got 3 left-handers in a row because we had Jake Mangum and Rowdy Jordan hitting 1-2 in the order. And they had a tough time throwing lefties, and that kind of sparked the rally. That was my big Josh Hatcher moment. Of course, he hit a big tank against Stanford, too. Casey Hunt and Andy Cannizaro commitment, a Chris Lemonis signee. Casey was the guy that Andy was recruiting down at LSU and carried that over to here, and we've gotten him. And listen, Casey's been money for us this year. You begin to wonder, too. People forget at times. We talk about all the injuries. We were without KC for a month. Look back at some of those ball games and think about that now. If we'd had a healthy KC Hunt, we'd probably not even having this discussion. Cameron James was an Andy Cannizaro signee, but that was, again, kind of one of those deals where he's cleaning up the green for Cohen, because Cohen had signed Keegan James and Greg James, former MSU football player. There was really no doubt about where Cam was going to go, and Lemonis signs him. And, I remember last year, having some conversations. If Cam James doesn't make the successful move from short to third, we don't win the national championship. Because if you recall, at the time, we had Tanner Leggett playing third, Forsythe playing short, and then Cam was DHing, which kind of clogged up the DH spot. Now, all of a sudden, you're able to get Cam on the field, which opens it up for Kellum Clark to be your DH. We don't win the national championship last year without Cam James holding down third. And you remember how good he was down the stretch. He was MVP of the regional. and goes out, plays exceptional defense at Omaha. Didn't have a great offensive College World Series. He did have the big tank against Leiter that really kind of got us going in Game 2. But, I guess it was Game 1, excuse me. But my point being, I'm a Cam James fan. I still think that he's going to be a guy that's got a decision to make, and we'll probably lose him this year. But, again, Cam has been part of a great team that's done some amazing things. Preston Johnson, a Chris Lemonis commitment and signee, and where would we be this year without Preston? Listen, I get it. He has shown a propensity to give up the long ball. He was our best long reliever last year. Maybe that's where he's more comfortable. I know he's been a starter much of his career, but he's been kind of up and down at times this year. But Preston, again, team first guy. He'll do whatever you ask him to do. It was a good get for us. And listen, our JUCO recruiting has been very hit or miss. That was a hit. Rowdy Jordan was a John Cohen commitment, signed by Andy Cannizaro. Will go down as one of the most beloved players in Mississippi State baseball history. There'll be a bunch of kids here in the next, couple of years that'll pop up named Rowdy. Tanner Leggett was a Chris Lemonis commitment and signee. Tanner Leggett, the biggest hit in the history of Mississippi State baseball. Would you not agree? The walk-off hit against Texas to put us into the finals. And Legg's a guy, too. Listen, he's a utility guy that has played basically five positions for us. I think he's played left, right, third, short, and second. He's a glue guy. And if you ever are around him, listen, he wants to play every day like everybody else does. But he's always ready when his number's called. And I'll be honest with you. When I saw him play out at Meridian in the summer league, I was like, I just don't know where he fits. But he kind of fits for wherever we have a need. Is he a great player? Is he a guy that's a major contributor? No, he's not. But I tell you this, he is a great contributor in that dugout. And whenever we need him, he's there for us. He is. I'm a Tanner Leggett fan. Christian Mcleod, an Andy Cannizaro commitment and an Andy signee, kind of lost some things down the stretch last year. People forget how dominant Mcleod was in 2020. I mean, he was phenomenal. You couldn't score on Christian Mcleod. That's what we were thinking. Yep, we got our guy. We got our Dakota Hudson. And then things were a little bit different last year, and he had some injuries last year. He was sick in Omaha. But, hey, I'll always be grateful to Christian Mcleod for what he's done for us. Chase Patrick, a Chris Lemonis signee and commitment. And Chase is a guy, too. Chase is that the arm slide guy, right? The guy that come out of the bullpen to give you a different look. We could really have used him this year. It had been great to have had Chase back. And, Chase is a guy, too, that kind of ate up innings for you. Bit of a matchup guy. There were times he left some balls up. He had a pretty good outing against Notre Dame last year, too. Probably left him in a couple hitters too long. But, Chase, a valuable member of that bullpen last year. Stone Simmons, of course, a Lemonis commitment and signee. We spoke about him. Landon Sims, a Cannizaro commitment and a Lemonis signee. People forget, too, about Landon Sims. Landon's first appearance, I don't think he retired a hitter. I think he walked the bases loaded, had a wild pitch. It was crazy. And he ends up being one of the best pitchers in all college baseball. Braylon Skinner, a Lemonis commitment and signee. Bray scores biggest stolen base in Mississippi State baseball history. And we'd like for him to be a little more consistent, obviously. We didn't sign him thinking he'd be a reserve guy and a pinch runner. We wanted him to come in and really compete. And if you recall last year, there was a lot of discussion about him being a starting left fielder, and he has the hand injury, kind of limits him for a while, and he hits that home run against LSU, and everybody's like, yeah, now I see. Now I see what Chris Lemonis was looking for. Hadn't had a good year this year, but Bray, again, one of the most endearing images of Omaha is him rounding third base and sliding it at home. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, how many times have you gone back and watched that video? Braylon Skinner will forever be remembered at Mississippi State. Brandon Smith, a John Cohen commitment, was a Bulldog through and through. As soon as he was given the opportunity, he jumped on it. Committed really, really early, obviously. Cannizaro signs him. And people forget he had the Tommy John procedure a couple years ago. Just wasn't the guy maybe that we had hoped for right after the injury. But, we're getting the best version of Brandon Smith right now. Right now. I submit to you right now, he may be your most competitive pitcher, he or Cade Smith. Brandon's a guy that is going to go out there and, he's not going to walk people. He's not going to go up there and nibble. He's going to go challenge hitters, and sometimes that costs him. But I'm a Brandon Smith guy. I have been from the very beginning. I was there against, Louisiana Lafayette when he walked off the mound, and you're like, that's not good. But we're getting the best version of Brandon Smith right now. Cade Smith, I think, is the future of this rotation. He was an Andy Cannizaro commitment, and of course Foxhole and those guys hung in there with him, and why would you not? The guy's a phenomenal pitcher. Parker Stinnett, a Lemonis commitment and a Lemonis signee. Parker, still not expecting him back. Again, I'm told it's not Tommy John. There's something else going on, and we're not going to, speculate on that. But, Parker gave us some big innings last year down the stretch. And this year, of course, he had a couple of really big outings as a starter. Logan Tanner was actually a John Cohen commitment, another guy, too, that, grew up wanting to be a Bulldog. Committed like in the 8th or 9th grade. Signed by Chris Lemonis. Going to be a very early draft pick in June. And that's the thing I start thinking about for next year. Does Luke come back? Is Luke the starter at catcher? Luke's got, I think, another year to work with because of the COVID year. So we'll see. But where are we going to be next year without Logan Tanner? I mean, how many strikes does that guy steal? I mean, he's a thief behind the plate, man. That guy is such a good framer of the baseball. And then there's Cam Teller, a Chris Lemonis commitment and signee. And listen, Cam's a good matchup guy, but we kind of learned, at times that he can be very good and at times he can't be. But, I say all that to say this. Let me give you some conclusions here. I think it's important to understand this, is that of those guys, of those 25 guys that appeared in Omaha, 11 of them committed to Chris Lemonis, and 18 of them signed with Chris Lemonis. So 18 of the 25. So this talk about, hey, well, he won with somebody else's players, it was a combination. And that's what happens everywhere. Great coaches make use of the talent available, right? I mean, it's like we want to be critical of Mike Leach and say, yeah, well, he should kind of, work around the talent that he has and not be so stubborn and implement his system. I don't know any other way to do it. You got to be true to yourself and what got you here. But then Lemonis comes in and kind of melds this group together and then goes out and recruits the missing pieces that gets us to Omaha and wins the College World Series. So we can't have it both ways. And that's one thing that I've learned is those that profess to love Mississippi State, that are still negative about Mississippi State, there's always the changing narrative. But I wanted to put the facts out there rather than allow this misconception to continue to persist among our social media community. It's like, well, there's enough to be upset about, right? We're having a disappointing year. But let's not burn down Duty Noble Field in our angst and our dismay. And let's not make these negative comments that are not rooted in fact just to support our feelings that, we're not happy with how things are going. You better believe Mississippi State baseball is going to be back next year. And again, I'm not counting State out just yet. I mean, do I think we can make the tournament? It's possible. I don't know how probable it is, but I do expect us to be in Hoover, and I don't think we're going to quit by any stretch of the imagination. I said this a while back on the show, and I got a couple messages about it. I guess some people didn't like it. But let me just say this. If you're going to quit, quit. But quit completely. If you're going to quit on the team, then quit. You can't quit and then take your ball and go home and then sit out, point out the window and gripe at all the other kids that want to play. That's my point. So if you're going to quit, quit. Don't quit commenting, quit watching the games. Just go ahead and resign yourself, get some yard work done, ask the wife, hey, make me a honey-do list, whatever, and just be done with it. That's just my attitude about it. It's like, let's not make fun of those that want to remain true maroon. That's the thing that irritates me. It's like these other people out here said, you know what, I'm going to hold out hope, I'm going to support the team, and then we're going to make fun of those people. It makes no sense to me. You're the one that's quitting. So why are those people at fault? You're giving up. They're not. You're being delusional. Let them be delusional. What's wrong with coming out there and saying, you know what, I'm going to support the team through thick and thin? Well, Steve, I'm not going to accept mediocrity. I bet you do. I bet you do in every facet of your life, and you just kind of rest your insecurities on Mississippi State baseball, and that becomes your whipping post. I suspect that's the case. And I'm sure I'll get a couple messages, Steve doing this. That's fine. Whatever. I don't care. I'm a Mississippi State guy through and through. I support Chris Lemonis. I support this baseball team. Have I been disappointed at times this year? You better believe it. I was disappointed at times last year too. And you know what? There'll be times in the future I'm going to be disappointed. That's the nature of competition. But I know this. I know we have a great coach. I know we have a great coaching staff. We got some players out there that are giving their absolute best. And you know what? If we had some misses on the recruiting trail, yep, you better believe it. So is everybody else. And this year it's kind of caught up with us a little bit. And our injuries have kind of magnified that some because, hey, when you have some guys that are expected to be the bell cows and they get injured, then all of a sudden some of the bell pups have got to step up and pitch and kind of commit themselves to perhaps a standard they've never lived up to before, and there's some growing pains. But I'm not just going to say, well, I'm ready to just give up on all this stuff. I got it in my office. I've shared this with you guys before. To my left, I've got a signed 3M sticky note that my dad had framed for me when I was a teenager. It says, Steve, best wishes and good luck always, Ron Polk. To my right, just past my Starkville and trademark, I've got a case. It's got a baseball card or a picture of every Mississippi State baseball player that ever made the big league that I can find a card for. There are a lot of guys that made it for a game or two or a season or two. It wasn't a game, it wasn't a picture or a card made for them. But I've got all this stuff surrounded me. And that's the thing that I think about too, is for me to be just so incredibly petty at times and to be so self-entitled at times, it's disrespectful to those guys. That's the way I look at it. I mean, you don't think Ron Polk, and even though he wears it so well, and we all love Polky, we do. Where would we be today without Ron Polk, right? He talks about almost not taking the job in Dogpile. And again, I think you should read it, dogpilethebook.com. You don't think it's stuck in Ron Polk's craw that he never won it all here at Mississippi State? You don't think it did? You know that it did. And he is always kind of put on a brave face and say, well, it's the guy gave his life and all his talents to Mississippi State baseball. He did. And he never quite got there. And it's like, I wrote in the book too, it's like, it wouldn't have been right for us to win it without Polk being involved in some capacity. John brings him home, makes him this special assistant to the athletic director. Here's a resource for our coaches and stuff. But he's back in maroon and white, and we go win the thing. It was almost poetry. It's just meant to be. But I think about it. Think about from whence we've come. It's like we won an AFL championship last year. I'm not going to be the spoiled brat that's out here saying, you know what, hey, you guys are failing me. I got a taste of that, and I want to have it again. And I do. Did I expect us to repeat this year? No, I didn't. Did I think we could? Yeah, it depends on matchups. If we could just get to Omaha, you never know how the field's going to play, right? You just never know. You never know who's going to make it, who's not. You never know who kind of exhausts themselves or has some injuries. I mean, you never know. It's a long season. But I'm not going to get out here and make these criticisms of our coaches that are unwarranted. I told you guys on Monday's show I disagree with leaving Cade Smith alone if we did. I'll call it as I see it. You may agree, you may not. I hope you do if you're listening to the show. But I'm not going to quit on Mississippi State baseball. Now, my expectations for the season have clearly changed. Clearly. But I'm not going to go put all my MOVRS stuff up. I'm never going to be embarrassed of Mississippi State baseball. Like, I read these things, people, oh, this is embarrassing. I think, my gosh. What a sheltered life you have led if this is embarrassing. It's not always fun, but it's the greatest thing that I know. When I think about things outside of my own family and my own efforts, I enjoy Mississippi State baseball as much or more than anything in the world. And we only get a chance to play a few months out of the year. And so, do I think the boys can rally back and maybe win some games that people aren't expecting us to? Yeah, I think we can. Am I expecting it? I can't say that. But I'm certainly not going to forget who I am just because our team has had some adversity this year. All right, let's jump into the top 10 list brought to you by Blair Chandler. That's closewithblair.com. C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. That's close as in closing your loan. Many of you have thought, you know what, maybe now's the time to refinance. And maybe it is. And nobody can navigate you through that complicated process better than Blair Chandler. 21 years of experience in the industry. You are dealing with a mortgage professional. A lot of loan officers out there, but Blair Chandler, a mortgage professional. This is a guy that's been through the underwriting wars. And if you've ever been on the other end of that, you understand. I mean, sometimes underwriters can ask for things that make no sense at all. And so it's good to have somebody that can be your advocate, to take your loan and your application and go to war for you. A lot of people out there would love to be able to take your loan and collect some commission off of it. But here's the deal. If you don't draw any benefit from it, it's not in your best interest. So maybe the dream of home ownership has eluded you. Maybe you're just an atypical borrower. Maybe you're just kind of a non-conforming type person. Blair has seen it all and done it all. Visit him today at closeatblair.com. And here's the thing, too. Let me give you his personal cell number. That number is 601-500-2344. Again, that's 601-500-2344. And if you mention to Blair, whether it be by text or call or carrier pigeon or whatever, telegram, singing telegram probably preferable, because Blair is a guy that didn't know a lot about great music. So maybe have like a heavy metal singogram or whatever. Singing telegram would be great. Let him know you heard about him on the Boneyard, and he'll pay for your appraisal. That is an incredible deal. It's about a $500 value. A lot of fees associated with the mortgage, and Blair's taking care of some of that right out of the gate. So again, that's closeatblair.com. As we have a thunderstorm rolling in, right? Okay, so I looked through some of your requests, and I can't remember who requested this, but I even texted Roy. I said, are you sure we haven't done this one? And then I started thinking about it, and he's like, no, we haven't. And so today we're doing 9 Inch Nails, and Trent Reznor, kind of the godfather of industrial music. When Pretty Hate Machine came out in '89, people weren't sure what to call it. I think it was Rolling Stone that dubbed that the industrial age and rock and alternative music, and I just felt that Trent Reznor was kind of like a modern-day composer. He's a guy that obviously has dealt with some depression issues and everything that goes along with that, and that comes through in his music, and I think a lot of people kind of understood that. I think really it wasn't just the loud and at times obnoxious sound that drew people in. It's just that he was kind of writing about real stuff. And as I've mentioned to you guys on the show before many times, the 80s rock scene had kind of gotten a little bit bloated, very predictable, very cookie cutter. And everybody's singing about partying and that kind of stuff, and, strippers and all that kind of stuff. And listen, hey, I got no qualms with any of that. But my point being is that when Trent Reznor came along, I think in many ways he was kind of a precursor to grunge. And what I mean by that is the lyrical content. We went from singing to nothing but a good time to, every day is exactly the same. And so I think there were a segment of people that maybe didn't identify with the debauchery of the 1980s metal scene. But all of a sudden, Trent Reznor comes along and sings about his pain. And the next thing you know, things are getting to be a little more serious in music, shall we say. I mean, you didn't have C.C. DeVille out there pretending to play a guitar, with 2 cans of VO5 in his hair. But be that as it may, I think the Pretty Hate Machine, which is the debut album from 9 Inch Nails, and if memory serves me correct, Trent Reznor played every instrument on the album. And most of that, of course, was synthesizers. But if you've looked, Trent Reznor now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is incredible. But that album, I think, is one of the most important of my lifetime. There are a lot of elements of industrial music that still exist today. I mean, there's just so many rock bands that you go listen to Sirius XM Octane, and you can hear a lot of influence from Trent Reznor. So here are my top 10 Trent Reznor 9 Inch Nails songs. And I didn't include Terrible Lie, which is one of my favorites, so we'll throw kind of an honorable mention to that. Sanctified's another one off the Pretty Hate Machine that didn't make our list. But one that did is your number 10 song. It's Down in It, because I was up above it. Now I'm down in it. One of the things I liked about this one is there's just all this weird sound behind them, and it's kind of like a spoken word thing. He's not even really singing. And you get to the chorus, and he kind of lets it loose. But Down in It, a great tune. Number 9, The Perfect Drug. And this is another one that is a little bit, shall we say, different. It's very eccentric. It's almost like the lyrics don't always kind of match up with the music behind it. It's very, very different. It's The Perfect Drug. It's a much, much different deal. And again, it's about, in many ways, kind of an unhealthy relationship. It's just kind of what it is. Kind of like isolating in with somebody else. Number 8, We're in This Together. Really dig this song, always have. From the very first time I heard it, I was like, this is a little bit different for 9 Inch Nails. But I thought that it was one of those things, too, that, again, lyrical content's very, very good. And I think it, again, shows kind of the maturity of the 9 Inch Nails process. I mean, as great as Pretty Hate Machine was, you go back and listen to it now, and then all of a sudden you start listening to Broken and the Downward Spiral, things that came after that, and you begin to kind of see the evolution of Nine Inch Nails, because every album got more layered, and every album got a little more dark, and every album got a lot harder. And so you kind of started Pretty Hate Machine, which again is an iconic album, but it is just simply a starting point for the industrial movement in music. Number 7, The Hand That Feeds. Lyrical content kind of goes for itself. But again, this is one that kind of made the rounds, and there were a lot of people, like radio people, were very, very, very reluctant to play Nine Inch Nails on the radio. And I think that's one of the things that really appealed to me. And what's funny, too, like that Pretty Hate Machine, I had it first on cassette, and it was black. And for some reason, that just kind of resonated with me, because back in those days, about the only thing that was a black cassette tape were like some singles out there. But by and large, like the packaging for cassettes got to be such a big deal. We used to have just the regular old brown cassettes. The next thing that they were clear, and then all of a sudden people were putting paint and stuff. And so it's like everybody's getting more elaborate with their packaging of a cassette. And then Trent Reznor comes out here, it's just black. It's just a black cassette. And I think there was a statement behind that. But I don't know why that kind of stirred me up there a little bit. But again, The Hand That Feeds, again, part of the evolution of the band. But number 6, Every Day Is Exactly the Same. I mentioned that earlier. This is one of those depressing songs. But it's one, too, that I think the authenticity in Trent Reznor comes out. He's kind of sharing his pain with us. And I think that's an important part of this, too. I think one of the reasons that Nine Inch Nails has built such a huge following, and one of the reasons they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, is because they have established this great following of fans that feel connected to Trent, because he has kind of opened his soul and shared his pain with all of us. And I think that there is some authenticity there that resonates with other people. Number 5, March of the Pigs. A great percussion on this one. Kind of starts that offbeat drum beat. Really a great track, too. And this is when they really began to have some mainstream success. Because, like, when Pretty Hate Machine came out, it was kind of like not a lot of people had heard it. And then they started getting some play on MTV, and then by the time the Downward Spiral got here, people were like, hey, these guys are legit. And so March of the Pigs, I think, kind of ushered that in. Number 4, I recently had a discussion with somebody, and I had to school them a little bit about this. The song Hurt that Johnny Cash sang is a Nine Inch Nails song. Johnny Cash covered Nine Inch Nails when he had that covers album. A lot of people think that, hey, well, this is about Nine Inch Nails covering Johnny Cash. It's the other way around, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal that Johnny Cash covered a Nine Inch Nails song. But the song Hurt, and if you've seen the Hangover series, you remember Leslie Chow also sang Hurt there too. But again, a very, very, very emotional song. And I think it's a song, too, that people can identify with. I think at some point we've all felt that. No matter happy-go-lucky you are, at some point you've had a down day. I think Hurt is a part of that. Number 3, as I travel around the Southeast chasing the Bulldogs around, I see it everywhere. Everybody's hiring. America's workforce not back at its full capacity just yet. A lot of businesses out there struggling to find quality employees. Maybe you're one of them. Let me offer some suggestions. Go visit my friends at Indeed. They've got it figured out for you. They can help you. It's a great partnership. You know how it is. If the Bulldogs don't have the right players with the right skills, chances of winning pretty slim. It's the same for you and your business. Maybe you'd like to be able to do more, but you can't. You got staffing concerns that are holding you back. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applicants that meet your must-have job requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates that may work out, get some ones that you know will with the right skills. You need one powerful hiring partner that can help you get that done. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like the Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply for your position right away. Plus, you only pay for the quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Here's the deal, too. We're going to save you a little money, too. If you're a business out there that's trying to make some things happen, and you say, you know what, Steve, I've never used a company like this, allow me to give you some incentive. How about $75 credit with Indeed? Start hiring right now with that $75 credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Boneyard. That offer is only good through the end of the month. It expires April 30th. That's Indeed.com/Boneyard to claim your $75 credit before April 30th. Terms and conditions may apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. There's no doubt about it. Hey, Bulldog fans, do you enjoy celebrating? There's always something to celebrate, whether it be a big win from our Bulldogs or perhaps a major life event in someone you care about, whether it be a friend or family having a baby or getting married or getting a promotion or moving to a new home. Maybe you're looking for that perfect housewarming gift. Maybe you just want to celebrate yourself keeping the couch warm and staying out of trouble, right? It's no easy feat, especially if it's a big couch. Maybe you just want to celebrate living in 2022. Where you can get beer, wine, and spirits delivered from Drizzly in under 60 minutes without even leaving your house. Right now, Drizzly is giving all new customers $5 off their first order with code FAST5. That's F-A-S-T, the number 5, FAST5. So download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. And use promo code FAST5 for $5 off of your first order. Drizzly is the number one app for alcohol delivery. It's the most convenient way to buy beer, wine, and spirits will deliver to your doorstep in under 60 minutes. It's quite the service there. So just check it out today. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. Again, that's DRIZLY.com. And use promo code FAST5. That's F-A-S-T and the number 5. There are times in my life you might have could even talk me into this being my favorite Nine Inch Nails song. It's the debut single off of album number 2. It's a song called Wish. And this is one of those right here. You want to hear some real, raw, industrial rock. This is it. This is it. To me, I think this is one of those songs that, like, if you were ever to, like, take a slice, somebody says, hey, Steve, what was it like listening to industrial music? And I loved industrial music. I did, when I was with Savello, and then, that didn't work out. And the next thing you know, I went to rehab. But when I got out, this is when industrial music was really taking off, and there was Machines of Love and Grace and bands like that. And so I kind of got on board with that too. There's just so many bands. I think back in hindsight too. I mean, Psychosonic was one that I really loved a lot too. But it's like there's all these bands, but if you ever said, Steve, give me the great example of what it means to be industrial, this is the song that I would give you. The song is Wish. And it's a wild ride, man. I'm just going to tell you from the very beginning. As soon as you turn it on, to me, as soon as it's over with, I want to start it over. It's like a song that I could listen to on repeat. It really gets your heart going. Number 2, arguably the most famous Nine Inch Nails song. Got a lot of notoriety, got a lot of controversy associated with the song. It's the song Closer. And the bridge. I'm not going to sing it for you because it's a family show. But the song Closer is, it's basically about the object of his affection, or in some respects his lust. I mean, it's like he's kind of obsessing over this other person. And he just kind of is very honest and forthright. This is what I want to do. You get me closer to God. That's kind of the second part of the hook there. But number 1, and it's the one that started it all. This is a legendary song, and to me, it's a song of protest. It's not just some song about, hey, let's just go plug in and just yell our brains out. This is a song that's about protest, kind of about what was going on in the world. It's Head Like a Hole. Black is your soul. I'd rather die than give you control. And you think about that. You think about where we are in this country today. I mean, it's like the song still just kind of resonates. Because at some point, those feelings of authenticity never leave us. Trends change, fashion changes, things in music change, we change, but a lot of those feelings of rebellion and revolution, they're enduring and last forever. And they just kind of flow from cause to cause and group to group. But this is one of those songs to me that just makes you want to put your fist in the air. And it's kind of like, you know what? This is enough. I'm not putting up with this anymore. So there you go, 9 Inch Nails Top 10. It was a lot of fun putting this one together because I believe, and I told Roy, I think I was probably among their first 10 fans in Mississippi. And you joke about that, but it just so happened I had a friend that played music with us, kind of in the same circles with us, showed up
I want to say from Houston or Dallas, and he's like, dude, you got to listen to this. And next thing you know, I mean, it wasn't available in record stores in Mississippi yet. It wasn't on the radio. It was just this underground movement. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard. And I fell in love with it. The Pretty Hate Machine, it's just Pretty Hate Machine. I keep saying the, and people are going to think, oh, he's not really a fan. No, I'm very much a fan, always have been, from the very first time I heard it. And so it's good to kind of go back. I can't say I listen to Nine Inch Nails as much as I used to. And a lot of it, too, maybe it's because I've healed a little bit. But some of this stuff, when I go back to it, it's like it just kind of takes me back. It takes me back to that time and place in my life. And I think it's phenomenal stuff. And, again, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not that it's like Iron Maiden or Metallica or Slayer or anything like that. They talk about some very serious stuff. I mean, you're going to be able to understand what he's saying. But there is just this symphony of sound behind him, this wall of sound that is just so layered by the genius of Trent Reznor. It's really unlike anything else that's out there. He really kind of made his own lane in music. That's your top 10 list for today. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out and let me know, or just hit Roy up at Dogmatic67 on Twitter. That's at DAWGMATIC67. Roy Samante, my buddy, that lives up there near Memphis, Mississippi State alum. And appreciate all that Roy and our buddy Izzy Mandelbaum, even though Izzy hadn't put stuff up as much lately, but he'll get caught up. But the list is out there. You can see it for yourself over on the Spotify list. Really appreciate Roy and his contributions to the show. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out and let us know. We'll put you on the list. And again, this has been requested several times. Just today I said, you know what, let me go do a viewer's choice today, or listener's choice list today. So for those of you that have requested Nine Inch Nails over the last couple of years, this is your list. I got a question a couple days ago about Prime Shrimp. We did have a Prime Shrimp player of the game who didn't play last night, but Prime Shrimp is outstanding. I had somebody hit me up and say, Steve, you've talked about the French Quarter Alfredo. Do I have to make my own Alfredo sauce? Because that might be a little more trouble than I want to break off here. And the answer to the question is no. It comes in the pouch. You just open it up, drop it into a pot of boiling water, boom, you're ready to go. So cook some noodles, fettuccine ribbon noodles there, and pour that French Quarter Alfredo shrimp right over the top. Very, very easy to do, and it is absolutely delicious. I can't decide what my favorite flavor is. It's like whatever I've had last is kind of what I like the most. So go to Prime Shrimp today. You'll be glad you did. They're a New Orleans-based company. Been peeling shrimp for really 40 years, since 1940, over almost 80 years now. They've been in the shrimping business. They know a thing or two about it. And visit them at primeshrimp.com. Use promo code Boneyard to save some money on your order. You'll be glad you did. Because I'm going to be honest with you, after living in South Louisiana as long as I did, I found it difficult to find quality shrimp in North Mississippi. You can have it delivered directly to your door. It's very well packaged. It can survive a day out in the Mississippi heat. It is so well packaged and cooled. Again, that's primeshrimp.com, a New Orleans-based shrimp company. Be sure and give those guys an opportunity to serve you. All right, let's take a look around the SEC. This segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart. I love Campus Bookmart. You will too. Go by and check them out today and go see their smiling faces. They will treat you like family because in their minds you are family. Simple as that. Campus Bookmart, a great place to shop. And if you can't make it to town, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll save you a little money. Promo code is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that gets you free shipping on all orders over $50. You're going to need that because you're going to, once you start loading your cart, you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to save a little money here if I get one more item. And you're going to want that other item. Rather than having to pay for shipping, put that money to work for some merchandise. You'll be glad you did. It's getting warm. It's going to be in the 90s next week. I don't know if I'm ready for this. It's going to be in the 90s next week, so you're going to want to dress cool as you get ready to head out to Duty Noble Field here to see the Bulldogs play the Florida Gators and then, of course, Tennessee here in a couple weeks. But get some new M over S merchandise direct from campusbookmart.net. And, again, promo code BSR. All right, pretty busy night in the SEC last night. Of course, Mississippi State not playing this week. We're in finals week, and good luck to all of you Mississippi State students that are still working through your finals. I've got one young lady that is done. I've got another one that is finishing up this week, and I got a lot of papers due. But listen, hey, you guys get to work on all that stuff and get it done. Don't procrastinate. I think it's important that you always put your education in the proper perspective. Don't ever just feel like, hey, I'll figure it out. No, put in the effort, put in the work. All right, speaking of putting in work, Louisville Cardinals did not make the tournament last year. We got a chance to see Dan McDonald wear a maroon shirt at Omaha as he sat and cheered for Mississippi State. His wife wore Mississippi State gear. He did not. He just wore a maroon shirt. Louisville goes into Nashville and beats Vanderbilt 1-0. 1-0. You know, Vanderbilt's a team, too, that you start looking at this, you begin to realize how vulnerable those guys are. And that's a big non-conference win for Louisville. Again, I'd love to play Vanderbilt in the tournament. I think we can take those guys down. Tennessee, huge win last night, 14-1 over Alabama A&M. You expected that to happen. And, of course, the home run train just keeps on rolling for the Volunteers. Georgia survives a 10-7 decision with Kennesaw State. A very, very entertaining ball game in many respects for those that were in attendance, I'm sure. Georgia gets out to a 2-0 first inning lead, and then Kennesaw State takes the lead, goes up 3-2, and then adds 4 more in the third. It is a 7-2 ball game. Georgia scratches back to get 1 in the third to make it a 7-3 game. And then next thing you know, the second half of this ball game, Georgia outscores them. It's very rare that you win a ball game not scoring the last 6 innings, and that's what happened. Georgia shut the Kennesaw State offense down. The final 6 innings of the game outscore them 7-0 to cruise to a 10-7 win. And Josh Hatcher, our friend, 1 for 5 last night. Josh hitting .357 for Kennesaw State. Florida trounces South Florida. We'll see the Gators this weekend. They take care of South Florida 18-3. And, of course, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Hunter Barco done for the year. They have pitched the last 2 weekends without him. So it's not like this is news that they were not expecting. You hope to get him back, but much like our bad news, I mean, you kind of have a bad feeling. You kind of know where this thing is heading, but Florida offensively really good against South Florida. Not that the Bulls have been very good this year, but Florida an 18-3 win. Missouri, 9-3 winners over Southeast Missouri State. You know, SEMO has been pretty decent this year. They went into Oxford here a couple weeks ago and won a midweek game against those guys. Texas A&M, 10-5 winners over UT Arlington. A&M playing pretty good baseball. I mean, that's a series now you look at and you're like, I don't know. LSU, 10-6 winners over Nicholls State. You expect that to happen. I mean, you really do. One of the things you don't expect to happen, though, is for Arkansas to lose a midweek game, and they did to Missouri State, a 6-4 ball game there. Missouri State gets after those guys a little bit. And, again, they jump out to a 2-0 lead in the third. Arkansas answers back with 1. In the fifth, Missouri State gets that run back, makes it 3-1. It stayed that way until they got to the 9th inning. And you think, okay, at some point, Arkansas will figure this out against the Missouri State bullpen. Mizzou State puts up 3 in the 9th to go up 6-1. Arkansas rallied late and put up 3 runs themselves, but ultimately could not close the deal. And so, that 9th inning, that had to be awfully exciting for the guys from Missouri State. But the folks at Arkansas, they're a very proud fan base themselves. But, looking at the 9th inning there, they pinch hit Diggs, the guy that hit the walk-off homer against Ole Miss. He gets a walk. They get a pop-up. There's 1 down. Then Bob Moore singles to left, scores the run. They pinch hit Gregory for Webb. That's a lefty-righty matchup deal. And then he's hit by the pitch. So it's like, is the moment too big for him? They make an error, allows the inning to continue. And then there's another single that allows a couple runs to score, and then that's it. They change pitchers, and they get a ground out to end it. So good win for those guys, but not necessarily a good win for Arkansas. But Arkansas's RPI is in good shape. Now, just 1 game tonight on the SEC schedule. North Carolina A&T will visit South Carolina. So pretty interesting scheduling this week. And then, of course, we'll preview the weekend. But let's take a quick look because we should get some baseball on Thursday. We've got one series that begins on Thursday. That's Tennessee at Kentucky. Earlier in the season, we had basically a four-way tie with a 6-12 record, and everybody had been swept by Tennessee with the exception of Kentucky. We do expect Kentucky to compete here, but we'd love for them to get a game or two from them. But the reality of it is it's going to be difficult for Coach Nick Mingione and those guys to get some dubs. Vanderbilt will be at Georgia this weekend, LSU at Alabama, South Carolina at Texas A&M, Missouri at Ole Miss. That could be awfully interesting. Of course, Florida here at Mississippi State, a series we desperately have to win. Would love to get a sweep. And then Arkansas at Auburn, arguably the marquee series of the conference play this weekend. Auburn could very easily win that series. Guys playing pretty good baseball over on the Plains. All right, let's look inside some numbers around this great conference of ours. We haven't looked at this in a while, but, Tennessee, people look at those guys and say, hey, they're just complete mashers, and they have been this year. They're hitting .312 to lead the SEC, but they also lead the SEC in pitching with a 2.18 ERA. Pretty complete team in that respect. 501 strikeouts for Tennessee pitching, and just 62 of 83 in stolen bases. But you wouldn't be the least bit surprised to find out those guys have attempted more stolen bases than anybody in the SEC. That's a Tony Vitello way. We're going to put pressure on you. 108 home runs for them as a team. It's pretty interesting. You look back at all this stuff, too. Looking at the home runs as a team, State is 83 home runs, right? That's a ton of home runs this year. And, again, we should probably set a school record. But that is tied for second best in the SEC with Florida. So we could see some balls leave the yard this weekend. It's interesting, too. Teams like LSU, kind of a launch angle team that plays in a really small ballpark. 79 home runs. LSU has attempted the fewest number of stolen bases this year. There is 13 of 19. This 19 stolen bases, and you almost wonder if that's not a bunch of busted hit and runs. But interesting offensive numbers, to say the least. But, of course, Tennessee leads in just about every statistical category. 108 doubles. That's a conference high. 20 triples and 108 home runs. They're just flat out getting it done. They look like a machine. They scored 428 runs this year on 478 hits. You talk about efficiency. That's getting it done. All right, let's look a little bit deeper into this thing here too. We talk about hitting, that sort of stuff. Mississippi State hitting .280 as a team, which is in the bottom half of the league. The teams that are behind us may shock you a little bit. Arkansas is hitting worse than Mississippi State. Ole Miss hitting worse than Mississippi State. Florida, .275, and then South Carolina. So some teams that we're kind of similarly situated with, not doing as well offensively against as we are. But we're not having a great offensive year. That's true. I don't know how anybody can dispute that fact. But you look at Alabama. Alabama got 50 home runs this year and 162 walks. That 162 walks is lowest in the league. We talk about swing and miss, but teams having swing and miss in their lineup. Georgia has the most, 415 strikeouts as an offense, and A&M is second with 405. Ole Miss 379. Those aren't great numbers. Auburn 382. And so when you start running these numbers down, you begin to realize, we're going to have some pretty solid teams that we're going to have to play down the stretch here. A&M is a team that is right there with us offensively. It's going to be kind of a similarly situated offense against a pitching staff, Mississippi State, that just kind of struggled to get people out. And some people would say, but Steve, we got to have the worst pitching in the SEC, which isn't true. Mississippi State's got an ERA of 5.32, which is not good. That's 12th in the league. Georgia has a higher ERA than us, and Missouri has a higher ERA than us, and we lost a series to both of them. That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, does it? We start breaking these things down, and you begin to think, okay, well, who's got the most strikeouts? We mentioned Tennessee with 501, but Mississippi State pitching not too far off the pace there at 494. Let that sink in for a second. We got the second highest strikeouts as a pitching staff, but we have the 12th highest ERA, or the third highest ERA and 12th in the league in ERA. A lot of people say, Steve, we're not playing clean, and sometimes we're not. It just seems that our errors have really kind of hurt us Arkansas leads the league with a 985 fielding percentage. Mississippi State is second, 984. The issue is the walks, guys. I mean, it's like you start running this stuff down and looking at it, and you start thinking, we've got way too many free passes. We have 201 walks as a pitching staff, which is second only to Georgia. Georgia, 222. We're at 201. Tennessee, league leaders, 112. They're doing everything well. Look at some individual numbers here. Individual hitting. Sonny DeShera, the transfer from Samford. Big, robust guy. He's trimmed up a little bit. He's still a big old guy. Leads the NCAA in batting average at 436. And, of course, leads the SEC. That guy's going to make some money for himself. I mean, he's not especially athletic, but the guy generates a ton of bat speed, even for a bigger guy. 13 home runs. The league leader in home runs, and a guy that I think will be the SEC Player of the Year, is Trey Lipscomb from Tennessee. That guy's really hitting at the level this year. 18 home runs this year. Hitting 357. Jacob Berry from LSU has 15. And then, let's see, R.J. Yeager's right there, 16? Wyatt Langford from Florida has 14. We're going to preview Florida a little bit later in the week. But, batting average-wise, I mean, we don't have anybody listed among the leaders in this league. We just don't. And you begin to kind of break that down, and you look at the team, it's 280. It's because we've got a lot of guys right around 280. We don't have somebody kind of carrying the weight for us. Looking, Dominic Keegan's the guy from Vanderbilt that was expected to be a star this year. He has tried to carry that offense. Just hadn't really worked out. Let's see here. Let's get a little deeper into this. RBIs, Trey Lipscomb, of course, from Tennessee. Leads in home runs and RBIs, doesn't lead in average. He's a little bit down the list there. It's going to be tough for him to get the Triple Crown, because like Sonny's at 436, he's at 357. But I think at this point, Trey Lipscomb is the odds-on favorite to be the SEC Player of the Year. Last year it was our guy, Tanner Allen. Hunter Barco, we talked about him being out. He's had 9 appearances this year, 5-2 record, 2.50 ERA. He is done for the season. 69 Ks against 11 walks. Big, strong, powerful left-hander. You start running these numbers here too, and you start thinking, okay, well, we faced a lot of these guys. We obviously don't play Vanderbilt, but Jonathan Cannon shut us down that Friday night. He's the number 2 pitcher in the league. We hadn't seen Chase Burns yet from Tennessee or Drew Beam. We'll see those guys. Joseph Gonzalez from Auburn, we saw him. Had a chance to beat him. Connor Nolan from Arkansas. He beat us. But we're going to see Nathan Detmer from A&M. He's a guy, too. It's been outstanding for them. He's been their Friday night guy. So, there's not a lot of Mississippi State guys in the leaders here. The one guy that is Hunter Heinz, who is tied for third in the league in RBIs. And he's second nationally in home runs among freshmen. So, probably a shoe-in to be a freshman All-American. I plan to kind of explore that a little bit more tomorrow in an article that we'll write over on Gene's page. But, you run the numbers here and you start thinking, where does our offense come from? And it's just one of those things that's happened. It's just kind of been kind of a total team effort in many respects, good, bad, or indifferent. But you start looking at some numbers that don't always make sense for you. But, strikeouts, who has the most strikeouts in the SEC as a pitcher? It's Preston Johnson with 97. We had 3 guys last year that surpassed the 100 strikeout mark. Preston Johnson should do it in his next start. And Preston Johnson is the guy that has probably given up more home runs than anybody in the SEC. I hadn't done the research on that, but I can't imagine there's anybody higher than that. R.J. Yeager, that guy's having a pretty good year, right? Probably going to be an all-SEC guy. 4th in the SEC with home runs with 16. Jed Fabian has 19. Lipscomb has 18. Elko has 17. R.J. Yeager has 16. And through Sunday, he led all hitters in home runs against SEC competition. Always interesting to look at that sort of stuff. Always, always, always. But, again, not a lot of numbers that really, start making you think, hey, we're about to turn this thing around. And it just feels so negative right now because of, what happened in Missouri. And it's just kind of like the reality of our worst fears are kind of coming true is that, the chances of us making the tournament now extremely slim. We lost ground last weekend, had a chance to make up some ground. We ended up losing a series and losing ground in the RPI. We needed that W It's still possible. Again, it's not probable. Not ready to count out the team, but I can't say I'm making any plans at this point for Omaha. I didn't book any rooms or anything like that. I think that's important to kind of, let's be honest about that with ourselves. It's just not the year we'd hoped for. And we'll continue to keep grinding. We'll support the team, and hopefully they'll find a way to kind of get some things done. And real quickly here, looking at these statistics for conference games only. In SEC hitting, again, we're hitting 279, which is fourth best in the league. Sometimes we live in the big maroon bubble. We don't fully appreciate that. Florida as a team, our weekend opponent, hitting 237 against SEC competitors. And then the final two series we have, Tennessee hitting 286, A&M hitting 282. So we're going to see some teams that have squared it up pretty good here in SEC play down the stretch. Team pitching in SEC only, Mississippi State's ERA 6.59. And again, the only two teams behind us are Missouri and Georgia. And right there with us is Ole Miss. Tennessee and Arkansas, of course, leading the pack. And who knew Arkansas would be so good on the mound this year? Pretty crazy to think about that. SEC play, they have been really good. No question about it. And, they had three very, very competitive games against Ole Miss. Looking at R.J. Yeager and his all-SEC campaign, against SEC competition, he leads the league in hits with 33. That's a pretty impressive deal, right? He's second in RBIs with 28, only one behind Trey Lipscomb, who I think, again, is the SEC Player of the Year. Home runs, it's R.J. Yeager with 12. Luke Mann from Missouri, who hurt us last weekend, has got 11. And then Lipscomb's right there with 10. Tim Elko also with 10. And Jacob Gonzalez from Ole Miss. Ole Miss has two guys right there among the league leaders in SEC play. R.J. Yeager, first in total bases with 75. He's getting it done. SEC play strikeout-wise, Preston Johnson still number one, 64 Ks. The only person close to him is really not close to him is Chase Burns from Tennessee with 50. And that's in just two less innings pitched. So getting it done, for sure. As far as getting some swing and miss, but when they don't swing and miss, it's been a bit of an adventure to say the least. All right, final segment of the show, brought to you by our friends out at Portico. I've told you guys before, if I was moving to Starkville now, I would move to Portico. I would like to be closer to campus. If I have my druthers, I'm kind of entrenched out here in the sticks. My contact and my friend that kind of helps run the show for us over at Portico is Brooks Bryan, former Diamond Dog. Even though I feel uncomfortable using that expression because I think former Diamond Dog kind of makes it like he's no longer a Diamond Dog, even though he no longer plays for us. He's a former player. There's no such thing as a former Bulldog. I think that's a lifelong designation. But with the transfer portal, I guess my connotation of that may change. But give Brooks a call at 601-416-8075. Again, that's 601-416-8075. No obligation. You just reach out and he'll give you some information because it is a great place to live, 1.1 miles away from the Mississippi State campus. Very easy to get to. Right off of 82 to 12. The very first right is Pat Station Road. You take that right, boom, there you are. And they just put in a new bridge right there at Old West Point Road too. So they're improving that area to say the least because a lot more people are moving out there, and it's basically off Old West Point Road. But you can start with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home and go all the way up to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath home. You'll be glad you did. Whether it's your primary residence or investment property for you, or perhaps even a ball game weekend retreat, they're going to have the size home that fits your needs. And if you go ahead and act now, you can have a say in picking out your lot and your house plans. Phase 1 completely sold out. Your new neighbors are already enjoying life in Starkville. Come up here and join us. We'd love to have you as neighbors. I think it's outstanding. I love living here. I absolutely do. And it's not just because Mississippi State is here. The people here are fantastic. The same people that you're going to see at Walmart, the people that are going to be, the people you see at school when you're going to school functions for your kids. You're going to be glad those people are around. So many great people live here in Starkville. You should be one of them. Make Portico your next move. All right, let's talk a little bit about football recruiting. That's about to heat up. As you guys know, spring evaluation period's underway. Your coaches are on the road. You're seeing them tweet out, destinations. Now, they can't have, real face-to-face contact with recruits at this point. And this is one of those rules, too, that I think is absolutely stupid. Absolutely stupid. So I've always felt like it's like, hey, so yeah, we can pass a kid and we can have a greeting. It's like, hey, how you doing? I'm so-and-so from Mississippi State. We're going to be recruiting you. Here's my information. Love to talk to you. So anything kind of beyond that is considered impermissible. I just think it's really dumb. And I get it. We're down to the end of the year and guys are getting ready for finals. But, I mean, how many of those guys really get to see a ton of high school or college coaches? I just think it's silly. We're going to let them do it in the fall, right? You can go out and sit down and have a meeting with a kid and even their parents in the fall. But, why is that semester any more important than the one that ends the year? I just think it's a silly rule. But you get 2 evaluation days per player, 1 academic and 1 athletic, which means, you can have maybe the position coach go watch the practices or perhaps the spring game. And not a lot of schools still do it, just spring jamboree. But you can go watch that. And so it's important to go by and see the guidance counselor and talk to the coach and kind of do all your due diligence and pick up transcripts and things like that. And there are a lot of guys right now that there's this funnel of recruits because right now everybody seems like a prospect. And then all of a sudden you dig into the academic side and you realize, hey, this guy's not going to qualify, so they leave your radar. Guys go out and go to events and get timed, and all of a sudden they're not quite as fast or quick as you expected. Or you go see them in person and you realize they're not as big as they're listed. And so the funnel begins to narrow. And so there are a lot of guys out there right now that have offers that are not committable. Now, if you're Mississippi State, you can't afford to put out a non-committable offer in the state of Mississippi. You just can't do that. I mean, that's just kind of how life works. If you offer an in-state kid, you better be ready to take him. And State has offered several in-state kids. I want to run some of that down for you now. And a lot of people are like, Steve, I don't really pay attention to recruiting, until it gets a little bit later in the process. And I get that too. But we have offered 16 players in the state of Mississippi. I'm going to run these down for you. Aiden Williams out of Ridgeland, wide receiver. I love his game. He released a list of finalists. Mississippi State was not one of them. We have always known that if he elects to stay in state, he's going to go to Ole Miss. A lot of discussion about him in LSU, though. A lot of discussion. I was told by somebody really close to him that he really likes the bright lights and was really kind of looking to get out of Mississippi. So good chance he goes out of state. Mississippi State not really in the picture with him. And you said, but Steve, we run the air raid. And we do. And, maybe later in the year he looks at it and says, that's what I want to do. But not so much. Now, Dan Smith is a younger brother of Deion Smith. Now, Joe Moorhead and the staff offered him. But based on my research, Mike Leach and his staff have not re-offered him. So that is an old offer. And so not committable at this point. And I don't know that Dan Smith has really had the maybe the high school career that we had hoped. And there's a lot of this too. When Deion was committed to us, you go off for his brother. Ultimately, Deion decommits. And so it's kind of like a calf cow deal in some respects. But Dan's a good player. I just don't think he's an SEC guy. Amarian Blakes from McEvans there in Shaw, Mississippi. He may be the fastest kid in Mississippi. I absolutely love his game. I don't know if he's a wide receiver or a corner, but I would take him and it's kind of figured out. I really like Amarian Blakes. I don't know that I wouldn't take him as a corner and certainly as a kick returner. That guy is incredibly slippery. Kadarius Wade out of Callaway, listed as a wide receiver. If you've been on our board, he's talked about maybe playing outside linebacker. I'm told that he can play either one, that he is a very athletic guy, and with that length, he's a guy, too, that you put some weight on. He could be an outstanding outside linebacker. It's interesting to watch that position group kind of mature over time in the weight room. So we'll see what happens there. And as I mentioned in the Bones last night on genespage.com, I think Mississippi State is going to end up signing a full wide receiver class. And what I mean by that is probably 4 wide receivers. You've had Jacoby Moore leave. You've had Teddy Knox leave. Micah Polk, of course, was going to exhaust his eligibility if he came back. But I don't think it's a 2-receiver class. I think there was some discussion about 2 or 3 earlier in the year. Steve Spurrier Jr. has told me before that every single year he just plans to take 4, and now the transfer portal is here. That's probably a good strategy considering how important wide receivers are in our scheme. We have offered 2 offensive tackles in-state, and one of them is already committed, and of course that's Malik Ellis from Laurel, Mississippi. I'm told that he absolutely idolizes Charles Cross. And so Charles has kind of helped us a little bit down there and said, hey, here is what my experience was like. You can kind of follow the same path. And the 2 of them, Very similar in build, very similar in length. Hopefully they're similar in talent. I don't know that Malik Ellis ends up being a 5-star. He is currently ranked a 4-star, but I really like his film. And you can only begin to imagine what he's going to look like with another 40 or 50 pounds on him. Zay Alexander out of Tupelo. I continue to hear this is going to be an in-state battle, but he is very, very close to Jacarius Clayton, who is a true freshman at Mississippi State. Jacarius is an early graduate from Tupelo High School, graduated in December, went through spring practice with the team, and looks like he belongs. And I'll be honest with you, there was all this discussion last year that he was going to end up being an offensive lineman. And I still think that may be his best path. But I will tell you, in the limited practices that I saw, he looks like he can handle defensive tackle. I wasn't exactly sure if he was quick twitch enough to do it. But after watching him in practice a couple days, I'm not so sure anymore. I think maybe he can do it. And that's what he wanted to play. He's very, very close to Zay Alexander. Zay is a guy that 350. I think he's down maybe to 330. I was told he's trimmed up a little bit. Probably will play around 325 or 330. Big, long, 6'7" offensive tackle. I do expect Mississippi State to get him. I think it's just really a matter of time. Isaac Smith, I think, may be the best player in the state of Mississippi. I love his game. He's out of Itawamba Agricultural School there in Fulton, Mississippi. Really, really, really like him. And he has got the world after him. His dad went to Ole Miss, didn't stay. There are a lot of people that say, well, he's going to be a Rebel. I'm told that that's not necessarily true. That while he grew up with maybe, some attraction to Ole Miss, that he has taken more of an open approach to things. Alabama's involved with him. He is a guy that is going to continue to add offers. I think that he is a potential NFL guy. And, we're going to lose a lot of safeties this year, so we've got to prioritize him. And Tony Hughes and the staff done a really good job kind of making that family feel welcome here on the Mississippi State campus. So we'll see how things progress there. Can't say that I'm expecting him, but I do think Mississippi State's in a much better position today than we were, say, a month ago. John Slaughter from South Haven's another guy that I've heard will likely leave the state. I like his game a lot, too. I don't like him quite as much as Isaac Smith. Again, I think Isaac Smith might be the best player in the state this year. John Slaughter, though, a very capable Power 5 safety. Be interesting to see what happens with him. And South Haven's one of the schools, too, that, we have offered some kids there over the years. We've had some success in DeSoto County. But South Haven, there have been times we just hadn't been able to kind of get going there. Sunterrain Perkins out of Raleigh committed to Ole Miss, and I understand he's going to go through the process, but it's going to be very difficult to get him away from Ole Miss. And that's not to suggest any malfeasance. I mean, this is a guy that goes to Raleigh High School. Dante Moncrief played there. Dante is a hero in that town, and rightfully so. Dante put together a handful of good years in the National Football League. Sunterrain is going to go through the process. He has been on the Mississippi State campus. I think there's just too many factors against that situation. I just don't think it's going to work out for us. But again, you watch his tape, the guy looks the part. And you begin to think about like the old Dan Mullen running backs. That's exactly what he is. Ty Jones out of Bay Springs, he is listed as an athlete, could be a running back, probably could be a linebacker. I think he's a guy, too, that could be a D-end, maybe a 5-tech. Not the biggest and longest guy, but a very physical brand of football player. I really like him a lot. Dante Kelly is listed as an athlete out of LaFleur County. I love this kid's game. I like him as a safety. I don't know that he didn't grow into a linebacker. He's currently at 6'3", 203, but he can run. So does he stay at safety or does he grow into a linebacker? I think you just sign him and figure it out. That kid can really, really play. It's a really strong year in the Delta, too. I mean, really strong year. There's probably a handful of guys over there that I think are potential Power 5 guys. State's offered 3 of those guys, and I think are in pretty good shape of getting all those guys. And that includes Dante Kelly and Amarion Blakes. Zachary Tillman is a guy from Florence, Mississippi, we've talked about before on the show. It appeared there may be some momentum about him possibly committing earlier in this process. I'm told now that he is going to take in some camps and be really busy this summer, and then may make a decision before the season. But that's just kind of talk right now. That's not a deadline or anything like that. Has some Ole Miss people around him. Ole Miss has not offered, so we'll see how that goes. I think Zachary Tillman is probably a double-digit offer guy by the end of the month. I really like his game. State is a guy, too, that State is an option for him. First offer. But this is a guy right here, when people see him in action, they're going to want him. And again, I don't know if he didn't become a linebacker. I don't know if he's a wide receiver. I don't know. But I know this. The kid can play football. He's a football player. He is a little bit of a tweener. You kind of got to figure out where he projects. I absolutely love his game. He will absolutely hurt you too. Tobias Hinton is currently rated as a top linebacker in the state of Mississippi. He had a ton of early traction, but I continue to hear that a lot of people close to him want him to stay closer to home. Tony Hughes is all over this one. I like the fact that Tony's involved here. Tony's very well respected in the Pine Belt of Mississippi and really all over the state of Mississippi. But I would submit to you that the relationships that Tony has in the Pine Belt are probably unsurpassed by any coach that recruits Mississippi. I like where this one is headed. I'm surprised that, quite frankly, that there hasn't been more chatter about him committing to Mississippi State. Jamarius Brown out of Moss Point, I was told early on he is absolutely going to go out of state. And then he visited Mississippi State for the first time, and now he's like, hey, that wouldn't be so bad. So we're in the game here. Again, I don't expect him, but I think this is a guy, too, at 6'3", 250. You begin to think about an interior guy. And the fact that State is going to be really salty on the defensive line this year, and many of these guys are going to move on, I think you begin to say, hey, listen, you got a chance to come in here and potentially play as a freshman if you work hard. And so I was told early on that the out-of-state schools probably had the lead. I think State has narrowed the gap a little bit. By no stretch am I saying State is a favorite at this point, but I think State is really in the game for the first time. Mississippi State commitment, Joseph Head. I really like him a lot, too. Glad that he committed early. He is that long, lean, rangy defensive end guy that we kind of need to make things go. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that he is as good as this guy, but he has kind of that same frame as Montez Sweat. A guy that stands up, plays on a two-point stance, a guy that really gets after the quarterback, maybe more as a 7-tech. But I think Joseph Head is going to be a guy we're going to look back and say, you know what, this guy was an outstanding get for us. And here's what I go back to, too. Coach Brown and those guys, Coach Rogers at Holmes County Central, since they consolidated all those schools, all of a sudden they're beginning to produce players with a greater regularity. You had Corey Ellenton a couple of years ago that played for us as a true freshman. The staff absolutely loves that guy. He just needed to kind of get in a weight room and get on a nutrition plan to add some weight, add some girth. He has. You had Kamari Rogers last year that signed with Miami. And now you've got Joseph Head. So you're going to have 3 consecutive years where you're going to have Power 5 signees. All of a sudden you start thinking that's got to be a recruiting destination for us. And, of course, we have some connections down there. It is Lexington, Mississippi. But I think Joseph Head has the potential to be a real factor in this class for Mississippi State. If you go watch his game, you'll see what I'm talking about. This kid is really, really athletic. Reminds a little bit of kind of a thinner version of Ty Cooper. I know I mentioned Montez Sweat, but Ty Cooper is a guy too. Like when you see that length, that's kind of who Joseph reminds me of when you start thinking about wingspan. I really like this commitment, and a lot of guys commit early and kind of lose their hype a little bit. Head will be one of those. People will forget about him, and then one day you're like, oh, holy smokes, this guy's great. Caleb Bryant, 6'3", 250. He is the half-brother of former Bulldog and current Florida State Seminole Fabian Lovett. There was a lot of chatter early on that State had the juice with him. He has been kind of encouraged to go through the process, and he will. He's taking in some trips. And the more he travels, the more offers he's going to get. When people see this kid, they're going to like him. But I still like where State stands with him. And so you start running the numbers here. We talk about, the 16 offers in State here. If I had to run it down, we're not going to get Aiden Williams, and we're not going to take Dan Smith. I do think State gets some Marion Blakes, and then we'll see on Kadarius Wade. But so let's just say, for argument's sake, that we're kind of wait and see on Wade. So let's say we take Blakes, and you take Ellis. That brings you up to 2. You take Alexander as 3. At this point, I don't expect Isaac Smith or John Slaughter, and for that matter, Santrine Perkins. You've got Ty Jones committed. I think you get Dante Kelly. You get Zachary Tillman. You get Tobias Hinton. I don't expect to get Brown. You keep Head and you get Bryant. State will have done really well in State. And there's some other guys out there that I absolutely love their game that State hadn't offered yet. And I'm going to give you a name, too, to remember. And I think I may have already mentioned it on the show with you guys before. Kelly Jones out of Clarksdale. And it's been a while since Clarksdale has had a true Power 5 guy. Kelly Jones is an SEC player. I don't care what his offer sheet looks like. I don't care what his film looks like to the casual fan. He's playing quarterback. He's the best athlete on the field. This guy's 6'4", 195 pounds, runs like a deer. You go watch his tape and you'll see him talking about it. But he is one of those guys, you basically recruit the athlete, then develop the position. I love this kid. If we offered him today and he committed today, I would be on this show telling you this is one of those guys you're going to look back a couple of years from now and you're going to be like, holy smokes. Nobody was on this kid when we were, and we got him, and look at him now. Kelly Jones can play. Kelly Jones is an incredible athlete. I'm just waiting for Mississippi State to offer. I think it's just simply a matter of time, and I think it's just kind of about getting him in camp. Let's get him in camp and figure out what he is. I think he's a safety. I think he's a long, rangy guy that can really run, that will bring some heat in run support. I think he will be a developmental safety, but I think that he is a guy within 2 years will be a guy that people are kind of clamoring to see on the field a little bit more. I really like his game. And this is just one of those things, too. Sometimes you see guys on film and it just jumps out to you. He is one of those guys. I've always said, like, if it's not apparent who we're there to see when we go scout a ball game, the guy's probably not an SEC player. In every film session that I've watched for Clarksdale, and there's a lot of film out there, he jumps off the screen. This guy's an SEC player. There's no doubt about it. And I think State's going to do well in State this year, and I think State really has a chance to do exceptionally well in the Mississippi Delta. Again, there's probably 5 kids out there that you look at and say, you know what, these kids have potential. State's already offered 2 of those guys in Kelly and Blake's, and I think this offer to Kelly Jones is just really a matter of a formality of him coming to camp and running well and performing, and the staff getting to know him a little bit better. So I can't say it's a great year in State. I think there are a lot of guys out there that are basically athletes that will develop a college position once they get on campus and you know what the needs are. There are a lot of guys out there that I think can play multiple spots, and that gives you some versatility within your own class. Guys like Ty Jones, I mean, he can fill a few different spots for you. And so I'm excited about the direction of things. I do think State's going to do well in State, but we're going to have to kind of, supplement where the in-state class is a little bit weak. We don't have a ton of wide receivers this year. We just don't. We don't have a lot of guys within the state right now that you look at and say, yeah, that guy's a surefire, bona fide SEC receiver. We had some success last year in Louisiana, of course, and in Tennessee. We're going to have to find a way to get it done. All right, well, that's going to do it for today, guys. Let's have a great week, guys and gals, and we'll be back on Friday. We'll preview our series with the University of Florida Gators. Hopefully State can find a way to win this weekend, and we're crossing our fingers hoping for a sweep, not expecting it. We absolutely have to have a winning weekend to give ourselves any hope of moving up the ladder. And Florida obviously is an RPI opportunity for us, and so we've got to find a way to go get it done. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
Underdog Fantasy is the fastest-growing fantasy app and easiest place to play fantasy sports. Just jump on UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app, draft your team, and that's it. And if drafts aren't your thing, they also have a pick'em game where you can win 20 times your money in a single night. Use promo code RADIO, and Underdog will double your first deposit when you sign up with up to $100 in bonus cash. Deposit $100, get $100 free. That's promo code RADIO. Terms and conditions apply.